Make It to Munich, directed by Martin Robertson. It tells the story of Ethan Walker, an 18-year-old who, just months after a life-threatening car accident, decides to embark on a 1,200-kilometre journey from Glasgow to Munich to watch Scotland in the opening game of the Euros that year. Spoilers, Scotland lose.
A 17-year-old from Scotland is seriously injured after being hit by a vehicle in Batavia. The Genesee County Sheriff's Office said Ethan Walker was struck as he was walking.
But it's not really about football. It's about this young lad and his journey and how, in the face of, death, he just, pulls up his bootstraps and gets on with it. It's 1,200 kilometres, not 12,000 miles, as somebody in the documentary hilariously gets wrong. It's made up mainly of in situ GoPro style footage and small handheld camera style footage, because you've got these four guys making the journey. You've got Ethan himself, you've got his knee surgeon, Professor Gordon Mackay, I think. You've got the filmmaker, Martin Robertson, and the filmmaker's friend, what's his name? I think it was Stephen. They're the four guys who make the journey on bicycles from Glasgow to Munich. They said 1,200 kilometres journey. There's one or two, I think, support vans that make the journey with them, but they're not with them 24/7. They're just, they're the support van. Mainly made up of, contemporary GoPro on the bikes and handheld camcorder style footage of the journey, along with sit-down interviews, studio style, with Ethan and the doctor, the surgeon, and Ethan's family and whatnot. It's mainly the cycle journey, and that's where the story is, and that's where the heart of this movie comes out, because it's not a high-end documentary. It's not a massive budget. I think, they shot it just in a couple of weeks, on a shoestring budget, just like, chewing gum and duct tape. But that plays to the strength of the movie. It doesn't need to be like a high-end, big budget, glossy documentary, because that's not what the story's about. It's essentially a story about about being Scottish, I think, overcoming adversity and just getting on with it. So I say it's a scene. It's a film about the human spirit, but like more specifically, it's a film about the Scottish spirit. Like, as a nation, I think Scottish people are, we're quite fairly down to earth. It's, we're fairly humorous at times. We just have a kind of get on with it mentality and, try and have a good time. And that's what this film shows. Like, Ethan had a life-threatening injury. He's probably never going to play football again, which was his chosen career. But he just gets on with it. And he gets on with it with a smile on his face. And it's such an insanely infectious smile that he has on his face. Admittedly, his version of just getting on with it was to cycle 1,200 kilometres and go and watch Scotland lose at football, as they tend to do. But yeah, it's just a really good feel-good movie. There's a scene, the scene that kind of stood out most to me in this one was, there's a scene where his mum is in the car talking to the surgeon, Professor Gordon Mackay, who they're not in the same, they're not in the same car. They're in, different parts. I don't know if they're in different countries at this point. I don't think they are. I think it's at the start of the journey. But basically, Ethan's mum is on the phone to the doctor who's going to be looking after him on this trip, and she's basically saying, "Now make sure you look after my boy." And she's trying to hold back the emotion and the tears, but it's like you can feel it bubbling under the surface. And she's basically saying to this guy, I almost lost my son. Look after him for me, because he's cycling 1,200 kilometres to another country. So please look after my boy. And that's the scene that really hit home the most. And it's a scene that I think must have been shot with just, the GoPros or mobile phones or the tiny wee cameras. But it doesn't matter, because it's just capturing like the true, real, raw emotion of a mum talking about her son and how she needs him to be safe because, she almost lost him. To me, that was the crux of the movie. Ethan going through what he went through, but it didn't just affect him, it affected his family as well. The graphics in it are really good, quite humorous, quite lo-fi. Like you can see kind of from the poster there, it's like got that kind of Monty Python-esque 2D animated paper graphicness, that, if that makes sense. that works for the movie quite well. It reminded me a little bit of the Ewan McGregor, Charlie Burman TV documentaries called, I think, Long Way Round, Long Way Up, Long Way Down, where they go on motorbikes and, you know, travel around the world the long way, and then they travel, you know, up the long way, and they travel down the long way. Even though those are TV documentaries, and, you know, so it's told over the course of, you know, 8 1-hour episodes or something like that. It reminded me of them a little bit, but I also think that's because one of the main characters in them, Ewan McGregor, is a Scottish guy as well. So you get that Scottish humour, that Scottish mentality, that Scottish way of looking at the world. It's just a really good life-affirming movie. You know, life-affirming, feel-good, triumph of the human spirit, all of these cliched things, which, you know, are kind of like saccharine to say, but just because they're cliches doesn't mean they're not true. It's a feel-good movie at a time in the world where, you know, we need feel-good movies and feel-good stories like this. I think it's getting a limited release in the UK, at least here in Scotland. Definitely check it out if you can. 8 out of 10 for Martin Robertson's Make It to Munich. That was the last film of the Glasgow Film Festival.
Words, they got 1,000.